Hey guys, I'm back and it has been a while. This is Kevin Miller, your local third-party developer, coming back at you. And we had a massive knowledge bomb dropped on us late last night on a Sunday night or Monday morning, depending on where you are. But basically, Microsoft had this giant media junket for a bunch of high-end or mid-range media and developers to kind of introduce flight sim directly to them so they can spread the word and be evangelicalized for Microsoft. And I thought this was a great event, and unfortunately I wasn't invited. I guess I'm a little bit too small, but anyways, I'm sure my time will come, or maybe got lost in the mail. I'll have a chat with my friend Royal and see what happened with that. But I'm sure it's all okay. But anyways, I just wanted to get in and talk about some of this exciting stuff that not only I've seen but I've heard, and there's a lot of knowledge. A lot of this is still coming in, still fresh. They had this media event, it seems like a little while ago in early or mid-September, and the embargo was just recently raised. So now a lot of people are starting to post their videos, starting to post their stories. So a lot of this information is still developing, still incoming, and still very new. And the reason why I haven't posted a lot of stuff lately is because I just haven't really seen anything that was really important to a developer. There's been a lot of eye candies, there's been a lot of really interesting, visuals that they've posted, but nothing that I could really talk to in the field of view of a developer. What does this mean for developers? What does it mean for third parties? And so that's why I really haven't been commenting. I've also been very busy on some of my own projects. I just recently released the Zenith 701. I'm sure I'll throw in some screenshots for some shameless self-promotion on that. But anyways, let's get into it. And what I'm going to do is take a look at what is they're calling it the B-roll video. So this is video. The media were not allowed to record stuff at the event, and Microsoft has released B-roll footage so they could show it. And this is FS Elite's B-roll footage, so I'm going to give them full credit to this since I'm going to be shamelessly stealing their stuff. Hopefully they don't mind this. I'm not going to play it all. If you want to check out FS Elite stuff, then please go there. You can see it on your screen right here. And they have a ton of interviews, they have a ton of information, and they're definitely one of the people that got to go to this junket. But anyways, let's go ahead and dive right into it and see what I can see and type a kind of get a good perspective as a developer, as a third party. Now let's go ahead and start this going. I'm going to go ahead and mute it since he does have a bit of voiceover dialogue. Uh, and that dialogue is more towards consumers, more towards, oh, this is interesting. I'm seeing, oh, so in one of my previous videos that I talked about the difference in the sodium lighting at night versus LED lighting. It looks like they've actually changed that. You can see there's yellow lighting and there's blue lighting that represents newer LED technology. So this is very interesting just right away. But yeah, this is the 4K for the global preview event provided by FS Elite. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's let this play a little bit in the background. And one of the things that I did hear spoken about in some of the interviews and feedback is that they're definitely supporting third party. What it looks like, we don't know yet. But they're definitely supporting third party. When there's going to be an SDK is unknown. And oh, I love this. This is my wife and I just recently drove from Seattle to Wisconsin, and we saw these circle crops a lot. This is kind of a new technology, and you can see like there's this watering system that just goes around in a circle, and they have that. This is really, really cool thing to see here. Anyways, and so we don't know yet about the timing on the SDK or whatnot, or they're planning for third-party developers. But I love this. This is something that was not in FSX, is to have detail underneath the water. We did something like this in Microsoft Flight. If you went to Pearl Harbor, you could actually see some of the sunken ships under the surface. This was actually a very difficult thing to do, but I love seeing it here in FS 2020. Uh, let's see. So as a developer, I'm very, very excited about listening to some of this technology. And one of the things that they're talking about is that it's a new rendering system. That's obvious. And also there's a new flight model that they talked about that instead of treating the aircraft as a single point of origin, which would be the 000 in 3D Studios Max, it's treating the aircraft as many, many points, or hundreds, if not thousands, of individual points, all affecting each other. What that means for developers is little extra work, but for a customer, it means a lot more accurate flight modeling and responsiveness, in that you can have a single wing stall, which is generally referred to as a snap stall, which is something that we had to sort of script as a developer in FSX and P3D. Is we had to script those snap stalls. So once it met a condition, then it would pretty much say, okay, as a result, do this function. And that's why FSX kind of had this whole flying on rails feel to it, is because of that's how the table system flight model was set up, as if this, then that happens. If you fly slow, then it stalls. There's no other conditions as of other conditions that would be contributed to that stall. Like you can get into it, like angle of attack, the surface condition of the wings, like icing, that would contribute to the stall, or humidity also contributes to the stall altitude. There's a lot of things that contribute to a stall other than just flying below the stall speed. Even just the prop wash going across the wing surface will contribute to whether the aircraft stalls or not. It's not a set value. So that is very big for the flight sim going forward. And it's going to make things a little bit interesting for a third party to have to set these conditions up. So I think it's going to be a bit more complex if they don't have a system in place to help us out. Or one of the things that I did hear, this is kind of paraphrasing some of the information that I heard, is that even though it's a new graphics engine and a new flight model, there is still a FSX core engine in here. That's because they couldn't, start from scratch. They had to start from a base, because FSX is like 20 years of flight simming knowledge all wrapped into one. They couldn't start from scratch. As somebody that's looked, there's very, very few round earth simulators that they could have built onto, and creating one would have been prohibitively expensive and would have taken generations to duplicate. So they have the core of FSX inside here, wrapped in this graphics engine and this flight model added to it. Um, so that's good news for us developers, that there still is FSX as a core. So there's still going to be familiarity. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of similarities from FSX developing into here, since it's still using FSX as a core. Um, Also, this could mean that porting is simple, or hopefully it is simple. If they don't have some type of script or not, hopefully there is a way to bring in our aircraft, make a few adjustments, maybe for the PBR or whatnot, and still have it use some of those core mechanics. And that way we can get some of our older aircraft into here, and then maybe tap into some of the newer flight modeling systems by adding on to it. So this is a possibility, given that the nucleus of the engine is still powered by what seems like FSX. So that is great news for developers. Um, it seems that this whole thing started 2 years ago in 2016, I believe they said, as a demo for Microsoft HoloLens. Microsoft HoloLens is a augmented reality VR headset. And that is actually very important because as a developer, you tend to not want to remove features unless they're in the way. So if this was started and developed as a VR HoloLens implementation, then it's reasonable to believe that that is still in there, even though that they have stated that VR is not going to, well, they didn't state that VR is not going to be done. It's not on their top of the priority list. So at on launch, don't expect VR. But the simple fact that this was based in a HoloLens project means that unless something really drastic happened, that's is still within its capability, still internal. So I don't think it would be very hard for them to implement at a later time. And so now let's talk about some of the other features that I've seen in this video. I've already gone through it, a couple of times, drooled all my drool, but there's a couple of things I wanted to point out that is key for developers to know and understand in order to sort of prepare for this. Now, first and foremost, yes, PBR. Second, yes, they're going to be doing streaming maps from Bing, which is something I covered and theorized in my original videos. But there's a couple of things here that is new that I wanted to point out. And I believe we're going to be seeing it pretty soon because I thought it was in this. Here, let's see. Right, it's right about here. Yeah, and I just love the way the aircraft is floating around. This is something that, again, was part of not part of FSX because of that whole rail system, but that's one of the things I loved in X-Plane is that you had this fluid feeling as you're flying, and that's something that looks like they're captured here. Now, I wanted to pause here for many reasons. This right here tells me volumes about what development is going to be like for FS 2020. I mean, you definitely see that this is very, very detailed when looking very close. Now, as a developer, in order to paint rivets, we have to create a very, very high resolution texture map. Just for reference, my 701, let's go ahead and pull up some screenshots of it, but my 701 has a 4K texture map, and that is in order to do these rivets that you're seeing right here. Uh, Now, what I'm seeing in FS 2020 is something completely different. These are not high resolution textures. Let me go ahead and show you what I'm referring to. These, if you look at these four rivets or end caps, these are not textures. Well, they are textures, but they're not part of a large texture sheet. These are what looks like a small normal map that is painted on a what I call a card, which is a 2 polygon square object just hovering over the surface. And that normal map, if they do it properly and if they implement it like I think they're implementing it, the normal map should be invisible and take the color of what's underneath it. So that way, if you paint a livery over it, that normal map will accept that livery. Now, this means that you could have a lot of rivets without having a lot of textures. It's going to rely more on the geometry, which FSX can push a ton of geometry. It's just hard at pushing the textures, the pixels. So what this is, these four rivets here are each 2, 4, 6, 8 polygons with a normal map textured on it. And that normal map could have a great amount of detail. And that's what I'm seeing right here. This, I'm convinced, leads me to believe that this is more of I don't want to say procedurally based, but this is not a pixel-based texturing system for at least the external. This is going to improve performance a lot. A lot of the texture space, a lot of your texture RAM is going to be pretty much chewed up by this ground scenery. And the aircraft are going to perform very well. You can see there's ambient occlusion here that's baked in. This is going to have to be, if using the system, it's going to have to be on a separate channel, a mapping channel. And then you have even these panels, these access panels here, these screws, again, are a two polygon uh, object that's floating above the surface with a texture that's on that polygon. These are not painted individually onto the wing, or else this would be a massive, massive texture. As someone that just did a 4K texture, I still could not get these screw holes in that kind of detail. And you can actually see, let me go ahead and take a screenshot here. And I want to zoom in a little bit into Photoshop. Let's go ahead and accept that. And then let's go into Photoshop. And then let's take a look at why I say that this is the way it is. If you look and zoom in, you can see that there are definite like kinks. Sorry, that's probably a bad word, but yeah, let's do this. But you can see right here, there's this angle, there's this angle, there's this angle, there's this angle. These angles are not something that you would commonly find on something that would be textured. You would see blocks. You can even see the angles here. So angle here, angle here, angle here, angle here, angle here. So this is not something that, this is not an artifact that you would get if this was textured detail. This is an artifact that you would get if this is a normal map that's on geometry and the geometry is just above the surface, and you modify that geometry to go in the circle. Now, this is not new technology, just new technology for flight simulating. But what is it? The not Wing Commander, the Star Citizen. Star Citizen, they use this technology to get extreme detail in the spaceships. So this is definitely technology that it exists, but it's a different way for a developer to think in how to do panel lines and on how to do rivets. Instead of painting the panel lines here in Photoshop and hoping you have the pixel density to achieve the results, what you do is you draw a polygon down the wing surface and you apply a normal map. That is a completely different way of thinking, and this is something that I'm seeing here, sorry, in this preview. And this pretty much confirms it. If you look over here, again, you get this segmented. This is geometry with a texture on it. This is not a texture, or not just a texture. And in order for this geometry to pick up this AO, it's going to have a separate AO channel and a separate map for it. You can see, again, these are going to be different. I love the reflections in here, but these are different screws. These don't have an end cap on them. So again, this is a different texture applied to a small polygon that is hovering over the surface. So same thing for the livery. This is, again, it's probably a float livery. This is probably polygons that are just above the surface. And again, that's going to save texture space. It's going to perform a lot better than having massive, massive textures on here. But yeah, like I said, it's something that we're going to have to adapt, or if they allow it, then we can still use the old techniques. But let's go ahead and get back into this. And yeah, the animation. This is the self-reflections that, you know, I was talking about. Here's some more of, yeah, you can see the detail is very, very crisp in here. And that's why I'm saying that this is floating on the surface, not textured onto the surface. Is there's no way you can get that kind of detail without doing something like that. And there's no way for that detail to adapt a different ambient occlusion or some of the other shaders without going deeper into multi-channel shaders. Great, great stuff. Yeah, this is another thing. Um, I love this reflection. This reflection is great because it really looks like you're in the cockpit. And yeah, these panels are very, very difficult to program. So hopefully we can tap into some of the default because having a default real, G1000 in order to tap into is going to save us a lot of time. I love these, bug splats and stuff. A little bit of something going on here. Is that part of like just a reflection? No, it looks like a texture error or something right here, but that's beside the point. A lot of times for in development, what we'll have is sort of a pink elephant uh, that if you're missing a texture or if something wrong, then it shows this pink elephant to get your attention. So that might be a pink elephant right there. Okay, more of this nice landmass that is provided by Bing Maps. There's another thing I wanted to show in here. This is London, beautiful scenery, beautiful clouds. I love the atmospherics that you're getting in here. The light is really nice too. All right, there's something I wanted to show you here in, yeah, no, where is it that he's taken off from Renton? All right, well, actually, let's get into this. Now, this is something that I've seen blowing people's minds, is this raindrop effect on the windows. And as a developer, I want to tell other developers this is not a hard effect to achieve at all. What this is a separate piece of geometry going over the glass, and this geometry has a world, what is that term? It's now normal maps is there's two different types of normal maps. There's tangent normal map, and then there's world normal map. Tangent is what we typically use in flight sims or any games, is that the normal map is based off of its neighbor. So if its neighbor is pointing one direction, it only has to, near it's, yeah. Um, I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but anyways, this is a world space normal map in that it shows the angle of the pixel as where it is facing in the world, not where it's facing as opposed to its neighbor. Now, what the engine does is use this world space normal map to make a calculation. It's a really base calculation on how the rain is going to move off of that surface. And this is something that was implemented in Flight Sim World, FSW, before it was canceled. And this is something that I've done in Forza on turn 10. And it's really, really simple to bake out this world space normal map in 3 Studios Max, in any of the other programs, in Quixel, in Substance. They can all calculate this world space normal map. It's very easy, so don't worry about trying to implement this feature. It's a great looking feature, but it's an easy one. If you want to know complicated, wait till you have to get windshield wipers on this thing. This Trying to get windshield wipers on the cars in Forza is a huge bag of angry weasels, and you don't want to mess with that bag because it will eat your face off. It was a nightmare to deal with that. So hopefully we don't have many windshield wipers on airplanes, and unless you're getting into some of the jumbo jets, I've never really seen windshield wipers on aircraft. I love the rainbows back here. I believe this is Washington State. Let's see. I believe this is where he like starts to take off from Renton. Yep. So this is Renton. This is an airport I am very familiar with. I've flown in and out of here. I've done this pattern many, many times. And I love the ground detail of this runway texture. And I'm also wanted to show you, in previous people were worried about the grass texture. Now I wanted to show you, if you noticed, like on the side, you see right here, you can see the grass texture. It's not over here, but it's over here. This is a culling, so you only get the grass texture rendered when you're close to it. And you can actually see as they take up, it's going to cull this texture, so you don't have to you don't have to process it unless you're very close to the ground. So as he's taken off, you can see it's rendering, no more rendering. You still get a feel of the grass because it's got that grass texture on it, but you don't have to calculate that 2D grass. So you don't have to worry about it taking up too much CPU cycles unless you're landing, when is the when it's the most crucial point. You really don't want to deal with that. I don't see it going to be a slowdown because just like those rivets that we were talking about, it's going to be on a 2D plane with some texture and then just duplicated. The good thing is that DX11 and DirectX 12 has what's called geometry instancing, which is used on trees a lot, but it means that if a piece of geometry is the same but just copied multiple times, then what they can do is instance it so it doesn't take as much CPU resources as if having individuals. Uh, and so it could be that for the graphs, they're taking advantage of that GPU instancing, but it could be that, like I said, the engine is just really good at processing polygons. And I don't see it being a problem. The water, by the way, looks much better. I believe in a previous video I complained about some of the oh, this is interesting. I believe I commented about the kind of sorry, I'm kind of blanking out here, but the patterns or tiling. And I'm not seeing the tiling, which is great. Now, what I am seeing is that you can see the waves here are pretty good intensity, but as you get closer to the shore, you can see the wave intensity falls off like you would in real life. Um, you can let's take a quick closer look at this right here in Photoshop. So let's go ahead and accept that, go back into Photoshop, paste this in, and then if you look right here, the waves are on the left side but not the right side. This looks to be, to the average person, it might be an error, that there might be a problem with it, but I don't think so. This is very telling. When you're a pilot, this is very telling what direction the wind is coming from. So if the wind was coming from the right to the left, this shoreline would protect the water, so it wouldn't generate the ripples until later. So this right here, as a pilot, I would say, okay, well, I'm going to get a bit of a crosswind when coming into this airport. It could be an error, but it could be that they're using this to kind of let the pilot know where the air is coming from, or where the direction of the wind is coming from. I'll keep an eye on that. Yeah, you can see how over here it's uh, the shoreline waves are kind of extended further on the left side. But yeah, let's keep an eye on that. I want to keep an eye on that to see if I see this pattern repeating, and if that's a good tell of where the direction of the wind is coming from. So let's go ahead and go back into here. It would be interesting if they actually did that kind of detail. That would be mind-blowing. Yeah, that right there is very, very indicative of what you would get as a pilot. You don't, it's a little bit of a nuisance. It looks great, but it's, that's one thing I do like about this, is that they're not only simulating the good things, but the bad things, like, water, the sun reflection off of a lake. It looks cool, but it's a bit of a nuisance as a pilot. That's why you have these big shades here, is because of sun glare. Let's see. Yep, yep. There's that sun glare again. It looks good, but it's actually a very realistic aspect of flying. And there's this landing section that I wanted to play. Well, here's a different one, but this shows a lot about the weather. Again, this streaking is not something developers are kind of need to the water the rain streaking is not something the developers need to worry about. It's just a world space normal baked onto a couple of polygons over the glass. So I love this in that he's trying to land in inclement weather and the aircraft is being bounced around. You can see he's crabbing a bit, so he's got a bit of a crosswind. I also love that lighthouse right there. That blooming effect is amazing. Great stuff. The twinkling effect as they're landing is also great. I believe that's caused by the actual droplets crossing. So, anyways, here's another example of those individual rivets I was talking about. Um, Same thing for these inspection screws for the cowling. And yeah, these are just two polygon, let's see, yeah, they're just floating on top of the surface, and then you have a shader on the surface. So this looks amazing, and it's going to be exceedingly efficient on your GPU. Just flying over Lake Washington, got some very, very beautiful water down here. Let's go ahead and get to the good stuff. Here's some more of that atmosphere and the sun glare. Oh, this just looks amazing. Good stuff. Pilot's a little scruffy. So I believe the landing section is pretty soon. Oh, hold on. No, this is taking off again. Yeah, let's see if the direction of the waves have changed. A little bit of a, oh, okay, a little bit of sandbar there. That sandbar actually exists there in real life. But I wonder if you're in like the Xeno 701, if you can actually land on that sandbar. That would be interesting. I love seeing that sandbar there. So you can see here the waves are definitely not as close to the as far away from the shore. Maybe the wind is pushing into them. You can see it over here a little bit. Where is that one section that shows the landing gear as it comes down? Maybe it's not in this video, but there is this one video that I saw. Oh, here it is, right here. Again, this shows the rivets very, very closely. There's just no way we can get that kind of texture, pixel density without doing that float panels that I was talking about. And you can also see the ambient occlusion here is affecting those individual screws. You can see one underneath. So that, to me, confirms that there's going to be multiple mapping channels that we're going to have to deal with. Let's see. Let's stop. I like this little blended layer because, you know, the striping on a lot of the airports are put there procedurally, so they're just blocks of color. These are, I'm pretty sure this is still procedurally placed. Same thing with a lot of these tire markings, but they're taking the extra steps to try to blend that in instead of just having stripes. They're doing these soft edges to try to blend that in, because these are typically sprayed on. They typically use a stencil, but still there's overspray. There's all sorts of weathering. So it's good to see that they're doing that instead of just putting blocks of color down there. Here, let's see that. Yep, same thing for this yellow one. You can see there's some color interaction here. There's some fading. I really like that. And you can see a bit of the ground texture detail, which is really nice. More reflections. I'm not seeing a reflection yet of the ground. Oh, I did see it in here, so good stuff. Now, so those are the things that I wanted to kind of touch base with in regards to what I saw in a lot of this stock video footage. First and foremost, its core is FSX, so a lot of what we've been doing for the last 20 years is going to feel pretty familiar. Oh, that's Disney World? I think that is Disney World. That is very cool. Yeah, that's, I believe, is Epcot. I can't wait to fly over Disney World. I've always wanted to visit there in real life, but anyways, so going back, I always get distracted by the ooh shiny. But anyways, first and foremost, its core is FSX with an upgraded graphics wrapper and an updated uh, flight model. Whether we have to use that flight model or whether we can bring in our older stuff and just kind of adapt to it is yet to be seen. But I view it as good news in that we're not going to have to relearn how to, ride a bicycle. Um, uh, Second thing is that uh, they're definitely a lot more optimized in the internals. I'm still seeing a per pixel texture system, not a sort of a what I in the past I said it looked like it could be a sort of a system that says, okay, this surface is leather, this surface is texture, and it would generate it for us. That I don't believe anymore after seeing more of the cockpits. But the outside, I believe the external is going to be more of that. You're going to be placing rivets instead of painting rivets. That's going to be a lot more optimized. And let's see, third, the water system on the front windshield is not going to be a big problem. Don't fear that. Let's see, and let's um, fourth, if we do have multi-channel mapping, which is to me confirmed just by what I've seen in this, then that's going to honestly be a massive boon to what we can do in the graphics engine, in that we can separate the ambient occlusion channel from the diffuse, in that the ambient occlusion channel could, what we can do is have one just take for instance, we have a 747 and we wanted to model the passenger cabin. What we would have to do typically is create one seat with one texture and copy it throughout the entire cabin, because there's no way we're going to be able to paint 400 individual seats. It's just not feasible. Uh, but the thing is that one seat is going to have the same lighting information throughout the entire cabin, and not every seat is going to be a window seat, but it's going to have to be lit like it's a window seat, uh, or not a window seat, because it's not going to have its own unique lightings. So even if it was, in the back where there's no windows and it's dark, it's still going to be lit as it was like every other seat. Now with a ambient occlusion that's on a separate UV channel, what we can do is give, even though each seat shares the same texture, what we can do is do a global illumination map on different channels, so each seat has different lighting information, or at least different shadow information. So even though that they're still sharing the same albedo or diffuse texture, seats in the back or seats that don't have a lot of light can be darker than the seats that have a lot of light. This is going to be a massive increase for jumbo jets. And it's something that we can do is later on, if we have that separate mapping channel to play around with, is do a texture system to where we can just put leather on a seat, and then the ambient occlusion map is going to be a global. So it's definitely going to be a boon for us once the developers learn how to use it. So I'm very excited about that. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. Just me rambling here is not going to be all that informal to a lot of people, but I hope you got, a good amount of information about it. And, again, please consider this all speculation for now, and we'll see what happens in real life. Uh, Hopefully I'll catch you guys soon, and enjoy it. Bye.